Go live now to downtown LA, I believe. A press conference happening right now in regards to the resignation of City Councilwoman Nury Martinez. Here's Councilman Mitch O'Farrell.
Difícil y pesada reunión con lo siguiente. Con el anuncio de la concejal Nury Martinez, es más importante ahora que los concejales de León and
All right, we're listening to him speaking in Spanish. Obviously, he's saying right now it's more important now than ever than the other two city council members step down. Here he goes in English. Let's listen in.
I want to acknowledge my colleagues who are here, council members Curran Price, Paul Krikorian, Bob Blumenfield, and Paul Koretz. Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez wanted to be here, but she is with her constituents as we speak in the 7th District, as well as Heather Hutt. We begin this difficult and heavy meeting by saying that the resignation of Councilwoman Martinez is the right first step, and to also say that Council members Cedillo and De León must follow suit. We stand with the people of Los Angeles. As I have said earlier, the wound is deep, the harm is vast. The transgressions are of a profound significance. And in order for us to move forward with the people of Los Angeles, we need 2 more resignations. Having said that, I'd now like to introduce Councilmember Curran Price.
Thank you, Mitch. Good afternoon. Nury Martinez's resignation is what we hope is the beginning of the end. The end of a nightmare that she, along with Kevin De León and Gil Cedillo, created for our city. Their racist, derogatory, and insensitive comments cut into the soul of the city of Los Angeles. It's unforgivable, and the damage they have done is reprehensible. This is a time for reckoning and reflection, but more importantly, action. Forgiveness requires more than an apology of empty words. The people of LA have spoken. No healing can begin until each of the individuals who have grossly misplayed our trust are gone. Everything we say and do has consequences, and whether in public or behind closed doors. Accountability and integrity are the very foundation of leadership, and our city deserves nothing less. In order for us to govern and handle the people's business, I'll repeat, we need Kevin and Gil to listen to their conscience, own their mistakes, and do what's morally right. Only then can we embark on the road of healing and reconciliation. But LA, let me just say, as we know, we're tough. You know, we're tough. We're survivors, and we're resilient. These last few days, the Angelinos have shown their power through the unity of coming together. And if there's a lesson that we can take away from this ordeal, it's that we fight back any and all adversaries that try to divide us, to try to separate us, to try to make distinctions. The journey is going to be long, but I remain hopeful and positive because, again, we're stronger together. We lift each other up. We embrace the diversity. That's what makes us so strong. And we are the greatest city in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Farrell and colleagues. For the last 72 or so hours, the city has been reeling, shocked and stunned by the revelation of outrageous, divisive, destructive, cruel, racist comments by some of the most powerful people in our city. And that revelation, I think, resonated so profoundly with people across the city because That's not what this city stands for. This city, being one of the most diverse cities in the history of the world, a city that people come to by choice and invest in for the future because we want to be here, this is a place that, at its very foundation, rejects that kind of divisiveness. And yet, those comments have profoundly interfered with our ability in the City Council to move forward with the process of healing and recovery. That is a process that this city will go through, but it cannot begin until this City Council is clearly and completely separated from the transgressors who committed those sins that were recorded on those tapes. Councilmember Martinez's resignation just a short time ago is a very important first step in that direction. We expect and demand, and all of the council members in one respect or another have called for the resignation as well of Councilmember Cedillo and Councilmember De León. And I recognize this is a very hard choice for them personally to make. But what they need to understand is none of us is entitled to this position. We are honored to serve in this position. And it's our obligation to exercise the very highest standard of personal conduct and to be beyond reproach. And right now, in light of the facts that are absorbing this city, neither of these council members can fulfill their responsibilities to the people of Los Angeles and to their districts so long as this is hanging over our head. And importantly, the rest of the city can't move forward and begin the healing process. So as difficult as this may be for them personally, this is not about them, and it's not about the name that goes on the door. This is about the ability of the City Council to continue to effectively represent the 4 million people of the most diverse, greatest city in the world. And that depends on the resignation of Mr. De León and Mr. Cedillo. I hope they'll do the right thing and do it quickly.
Bob Blumenfield.
Thank you. You know, we just heard of the resignation of Nury Martinez, and I think about the incredibly painful and hurtful words that she said over the course of an hour, when she said it in almost a gleeful way, taking joy in saying these horrible things about different communities and showing disdain for your colleagues. Well, I take no joy in her resigning today. It is a necessary and important step, but it is not a joyful one. For her, I hope she gets the help that she needs. The revelations of this tape showed a very hateful heart and a disdain for others in a sick way. And I want her to be able to move forward, and all of us to be able to move forward. We need to take this, put this behind us, and try to move forward and to embrace each other. This is the worst part of our City of Angels, what we heard. But we know, all of us know, that this city is stronger because of its diversity. This city is stronger because of all of the communities that are out there. And we need to show them as a council that we hear that, we acknowledge that, we embrace that, and we are going to be a better city moving forward because of that. So this is a big step. Clearly, as my colleagues have said, we want to see additional resignations to take that next step. But this is a very, very important step, and I don't want to minimize that because I want to get us on that path. Now we need to go forward. We need to put in a council leadership team that leads, doesn't try to rule, that actually respects your fellow members and understands that we all need to work together. And we can get there. We will get there. I'm confident of that. The folks who are on this council who stand before me here and other members I know are ready to dig in and get us past that, and hopefully we can be stronger in the end. So it's a sad day that we're here, but it is a turning point. Thank you.
And lastly, with us today, Paul Koretz.
Well, I have to say, I'm still in shock. It's really hard to decide what the next steps are in the healing process. But I was shocked that 3 of my colleagues who are not only powerful but well respected turn out not to deserve that respect. I was shocked when I heard this late on Sunday. I heard some of the things that Nury said, and I immediately called for her resignation. And there certainly was no joy in doing so. But it had to be done because things were said that were so horrendous. So many racist comments against every possible group. And the fact that people out there will think this represents conversations the council has. And I'm here to assure you, this is not the council. This is those 3 people. But this nonetheless will create a lot of divisiveness in the city. It is going to take a long time for us to heal. And we can only begin that process once all 3 council members have resigned. There are a number of steps we have to take from the things that we've learned. There are reforms that we need to enact in terms of how the city operates. We will take a number of steps as a result of this, and positive steps. So we will actually improve the city. The city is coming together. The council is coming together. This council is never divided, as you would think, listening to this transcript. This isn't blacks versus Latinos versus Armenians versus whites versus Jews. This is a united council, and it will remain so and come together even stronger in the future.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. So we're standing together in solidarity with the people of Los Angeles because we know that there are 2 obstacles remaining to this city moving forward, to even infringing on our ability to govern. And that is, we need the resignations of Gil Cedillo and Kevin De León. Thank you. If there are any questions, we're happy to do our best.
Councilmember, Nury Martinez issued a lengthy statement along with her resignation. What do you make of the statement itself?
I just scanned it myself. I haven't had a time to sit down and read every minute of it. But the good news is that it's a resignation, and she's no longer on the Los Angeles City Council. And I know that she has a lot of things to figure out in her personal life, and she'll be on that journey. But that frees us up, at least it's another step that frees us up to enter into our journey that we need to on behalf of the residents of the city of Los Angeles.
She apologizes to her staff, but she doesn't apologize for what she said.
I noticed that.
We've heard your calls for resignations from Gil and Kevin. Have you spoken with them at length? If so, what have they said? Have they given you any indication?
I spoke with Gil at length. What time is it now? About an hour ago. About an hour ago at length. And I sense that he is making some progress toward that decision. That's really all I can say. But I urged him once again. I said, listen, we really need to move forward, and we can only do so once this task is complete. And I have not spoken with Mr. De León, although I've been trying to. I've been trying all day, and so hopefully that will happen soon.
Have any of the others? Have you all spoken with either of the 2?
I spoke to De León and Cedillo at the beginning of the meeting on Tuesday, briefly, expressing my shock at what was said, and indicated too that they needed to resign, they needed to step down. They I guess thought otherwise. In fact, went into the meeting. That meeting was shut down, as you know, but only after they left. And so even then, we attempted to appeal. Several of us attempted to appeal to them. That it was time to resign, or at least leave the room. And so they did leave the room.
Gil's defense is that he apologized for not speaking up and stopping the conversation, but Gil said, I didn't say it during the comments, I didn't disparage my colleagues. What do you say to that statement?
Well, I would just say let's start with the meeting in the first place to talk about holding on to power or doling out power as they see fit, unbeknownst to any of us, at the County Federation of Labor. That's the first problem with this whole entire issue. And then it just got exponentially worse after that very scenario where all the racist language and all the ugly conversations took place. And so the fact that there were 4 individuals who all knew better that stayed with that conversation, I think that explains more than everyone needs to understand about why we're at this moment calling for these resignations. Mr. Krikorian.
Yeah, I would just add this thought. Mr. Cedillo is somebody that I think all of us have known for literally for decades. And he's had a long and distinguished career of public service. And he has acknowledged and apologized for the fact that he didn't speak up as a bystander. You know, when someone is being bullied, those around the bullying have an obligation to step in and stop the bullying. When someone is behaving in a racist manner, we have an obligation to step in and make sure that that doesn't happen in this city and in every place.
We'll leave
Yeah, and those things didn't happen, and he's acknowledged his own responsibility for that. I get that this is hard for him to conclude that that should lead to his resignation, but I want to reiterate again, it doesn't matter whether any of us thinks that, you know, what is happening to us is fair or just. What matters is the best interests of the people of Los Angeles and the city council that represents them. And in this context, at this moment in history, the interests of the people of Los Angeles are best served, and certainly the interests of this institution are best served by Mr. Cedillo stepping aside.
What should the public feel or think about the resignation process in the first place? And as you've heard from the city attorney, his proposal that we need a special election in the spring.
All right, well, we apparently lost the feed there into LA City Hall, but as you just heard, we've been listening to members of the LA City Council all speaking out moments after Nury Martinez turned in her resignation, and basically all the LA City Council members we did listen to all agree that the next step is to get that resignation from Gil Cedillo and Kevin De León. They're still waiting on that.
That's right. They say it's the right first step for her to resign, for Nury Martinez, the former president of the council, to resign, but that the 2 others must follow suit. Council members Gil Cedillo and Kevin De León, and all 5 council members that you just heard from in that news conference, saying that in order for the city of Los Angeles to move forward, this is the only way that can happen, for them to resign.
And think about it, Susie, we've heard words like the wounds are deep, the harm is vast. This is the beginning of the end of a nightmare that the city is living in right now. So everybody very touched by what's happened, and they're hoping to eventually get these next 2 city council members to turn in their resignation so that the city can move on, so they can get back to business. Because as you saw earlier today, there weren't enough LA City Council members at today's meeting. There wasn't a quorum needed to facilitate a meeting, so the meeting today was canceled. And of course, protesters were back today as well.
That's right. We're going to keep an eye on this situation, of course, at City Council.